Hello everyone, welcome to my weird and wonderful world, and I'm going to talk today about my Montreal adventures. Now, mind you, some of these some of these stories are going to seem really unbelievable. I assure you, it really is the truth. It really happened, and I know many of you might not believe these stories because they seem so outrageous and weird, but it was a strange time for me, and Montreal is a weird and strange place, and I loved every second of it, even at the darkest of times, even at the worst of moments. Just being, it's just about being in Montreal. There was something about the energy that kept me going. And when I went to Montreal, it was mainly to get to know myself, to figure out things about my life, and yeah, it's a strange, complicated story, but I'm hoping to get through this as best as I can because a lot of things happen. In this story, I'm going to be talking mostly about my trip up there, things that happened within that first year of being there, and mostly about my encounter with a particular person, which, for the purposes of this video and other subsequent videos, because I don't want to mention his name, and I know this term will kind of bug him a little bit, but I do say it affectionately. I have made peace with this person in the end, because you'll see what this person put me through. It was kind of torturous in some ways, and not right. But I'm a good person. I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and I'm as you may know by now, I am a pacifist. I'm not a fighter. I don't really, and I know my brother and other people are trying to say to me that, oh, you should know how to fight. I'm not that kind of a person. I mean, maybe it would have been better if I was more of a forceful. But when I went to Montreal, I went to learn about things and about myself, and to really get in touch with my humanity and my spirituality. I'm not religious in any way, shape, and form, but I do have a sense of spirituality. And so, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to call this person the Goof, or Goof, because I know it would bug him, because it was something that was considered an insult, like a really bad insult. Now I want to try to start right from the beginning. It was January 4th, yeah, January 4th of 2001, when I decided. Well, I had decided previously to go to Montreal, but that's the night where I left, and and I had been planning on going there. I was trying to save up some money. I didn't have very much money when I went up there. I think all I had in my pocket was $30, but I did want to get more. And it was a snowstorm outside. I had just a duffel bag with me, full of clothes and some prized possessions and everything. And I wasn't planning on going at that moment, but I was at my parents' place at the time that day, and I don't know, because things in just people didn't really understand me, and I was, and as you heard in some of my, like, in my overcoming insecurities, my parents were not the best of parents, and I was 3 days away from my 30th birthday, and we got into an argument. I forget what the argument was about, and I was just at that point I was just kind of fed up, and I just, like, okay. I remember even what was on the TV at the time. The movie was Mars Attacks, and I was watching Mars Attacks, and yeah, something happened, and we got in a little argument, and it was a storm out and everything, and I'm like, screw that. I'm leaving. I can't stay around here anymore because I'm going to go out of my mind. I'm going to go crazy if I stick around here. Things were getting heated and heavy, and I'm like, no, I can't put up with that anymore because I'm going to lose my peace of mind if I stay any longer. I really wanted to go to Montreal. I didn't care if I didn't have that much money. I was going to hitchhike up. So where my parents lived was like maybe like not even a 5-10 minute walk to the Trans Canada Highway. I basically walked up all the way to what they called the big stop at the time, which is not like not too far from where you turn off to the 130, yeah, the 126 highway going north towards Miramichi. But it was called the big stop. It was a truck stop there, and I remember getting there with my duffel bag, and instead of hitchhiking, I went in and I asked around to the truck drivers, is there anybody going to Montreal? I would really appreciate a drive up there if anybody could pick me up and drop me off anywhere close to Montreal. It didn't matter. So okay, so I did actually find somebody within maybe 20 minutes that was going up to Montreal. Awesome, awesome. So I got into the truck and we went there, and I didn't sleep that whole night. Me and the truck driver, we had a cool conversation. I was telling them my story of why I was going to Montreal and everything, and blah blah blah, and that was cool. And he dropped me off at like a like a metro station at not too far from I can't remember the name of the store, but it was near Ville Anjou up in Montreal. And we had to cross the over the bridge. I remember in the morning like being able to see like mountains. I had never seen mountains so big before as we were coming towards Montreal, like in Quebec. And and it was pretty astonishing for me. Well, I get dropped off in the morning. It was like about 8 9 a.m. in the morning. It was just me. I had a toque on, and I had a trench coat, a nice big long black trench coat that I actually sewn like just a white part of a yin yang in the back of it. I don't know what people may have thought of me when I got dropped off, but I had no money really. I only had like $30, and I needed before the night was over. I needed to figure out where to stay. So okay, at the time I kind of made up a little story. I lied, okay, and went to the police station and told them a story about how I got picked up by a truck driver, and then when I got dropped off, I was looking for my money and I got my money stolen. It was not true. The truck driver was actually a really decent guy and everything. But I wasn't going to get the guy in trouble or anything, so I said I can't remember. I'm not a truck person. I don't know what kind of truck it was. I don't remember the guy's name, and he's a truck driver. He just dropped me off. So there was no way that they could investigate that. All I was there for, basically, to ask the police is could you point me the way to a men's shelter so I can at least have a place to stay for the next couple of nights until I get my bearings? So they actually brought me over to the metro station, and it was the first time I ever seen a subway system in life. I had only seen it on movies. It was surreal to me. It was like being in a movie. I had never before seen the subway. So they got me on to the subway for free, and they told me get off at this stop at Barrie Metro and go to a place called Maison du Père, which is translated to House of the Father. So I was able to find it, and got there, and I was so lucky that I got the very last room. It was room 108, the very last room. There was only one room left, and it was the very last one in that they had. So yeah, I was able to get shelter that day, showered. It's weird. They I had to completely abandon the clothes that I was wearing, and it was a policy for some weird reason that I had to get rid of the clothes I was wearing, and they would give me new clothes to wear. And they checked my bag and everything, and I luckily I didn't lose my stuff, but they had to put my bag in storage overnight and blah blah blah. And I get up that early that morning on the 5th of January, and my birthday's on the 7th. So I was telling them, oh, my birthday's in 2 days and everything, and they gave me a little cupcake with a candle in it in the morning. I was up early because they get you up early to get you out of the door by at least 7:30. But because it was super cold outside, it was minus 15, or like I think below minus 15 Celsius. That they kept us in for an extra hour, so you could get a little extra hour of sleep. But it didn't matter to me. I was still kind of I did sleep that night. I had a decent bed. I think I shared a room with two other people, but I don't really remember that too much. So that was fine and dandy. And I remember I remember when, like, in the morning, and I think I stayed at that shelter for maybe about a good 3 weeks. But every day when I get up, I would go and try to explore the city. I would do like go in a spiral and check in the city because I wanted to make sure that I knew my way back to the shelter, that I didn't get lost. Because when you're exploring a new place for the first time, I systematically started learning where things were, and very quickly started learning where the food banks were. So like there's a soup kitchens and that. So the first one I started going to was called Akoi Bano, which I'm not exactly sure what it means now, but yeah, it was right at the very bottom of Barry Street in Montreal. And yeah, just tucked off to the side a little bit. Yeah, a little soup kitchen that you had to go down in the basement, and you sat down and they served you the food and everything. It was decent. Now I knew where to go and eat. I had a men's shelter I was staying at for a while, and yeah, I was able to, like, after that first day, and I was able to keep the clothes that I was wearing and stuff. I don't know why the first time in there they had to change my clothes, but it was weird. Now, here comes my introduction to the goof. Okay, and as you know, I was an artist and that, and I had a little thing of artwork that I had saved with me, and I was trying to draw every day, like little sketches here and there. And I saw this guy. He was mopping the floor, and he looked interesting to me. Like I don't know. I just, for some reason, I talked to this guy to show him my drawings and that. And big mistake. I should have never have talked to this person, because I'll get to what happened, and it's unbelievable. But when I started talking to this person, he like, okay, imagine a guy who looks a cross between Lurch from the Addams Family and Frankenstein's monster. He had a big Cro-Magnon brow, this weird jaw with a jutting chin, kind of a crooked nose a bit. Just a strange looking guy, but he seemed interesting, and I made the mistake of showing him my drawings and stuff. Now, I didn't know at that moment, but the guy had been just got out of prison in the last week or so, and he had been in there. And I'm not going to say what his crime was, why he was in there, because it's really nasty and bad. But but yeah, he had just gotten out of prison. He was in there for 13 years, and had just gotten released. And a guy like that, he wanted to try to live it up, but he was a con guy, a con artist. This is a guy who would carry a giant ring of keys that he would find everywhere, and be able to use, like know what locks it might go to, and try it, and eventually succeed. Like, he would break into cars, break into parking lot booths, and all that kind of stuff. I didn't know it at the time. He just looked like an interesting guy that I wanted to talk to. Again, I should have never have talked to him. It would have saved me so much grief and hassle, because this guy, unbeknownst to me, was like bisexual, and kind of got a shine for me. He just wanted to know why this kind, good-natured guy was talking to him like that. And so, yeah, he started stalking me for months, maybe even like a year or so. Like, this guy was always following me around, when I, like, especially I didn't even know he was following me. He would follow me everywhere. He was stalking me, trying to ingratiate himself into my life, trying to be friends with me. And after about a couple of days of getting to know this kind of guy, I didn't want to know him anymore. I wanted him to leave me alone and get out of my life, because it was so, yeah, it was pretty disturbing and pretty bothersome. He always show up at the wrong time, and whatever good plans I tried to do for myself, he would go and tear it down. He would just go and just bring me down as much as he could. Now I was staying at the men's shelters for at least 2 months, and there was a few different ones that I would stay at. There was the Old Brewery Mission that I would stay at for a while. But I desperately needed an apartment. I desperately needed a job, and I didn't have a phone to use and everything. But I really worked at it. I was going to see the welfare, going to the welfare office to get social assistance and stuff. And I was really trying to get on my feet, and because I wanted to work. I was desperate to work. I was desperate to get a place. I didn't want to stay at the men's shelter, because it was weird. It was not really a place for me at the time. I mean, this was really at the beginning. I eventually, like years later, when other situations happened, had to stay at a certain men's shelter, but the experience was a lot better than at the beginning. At the beginning, when I first moved there, it was a hard time getting back on my feet. But at one point, okay, I was finally able to, like, after 2 months, and some people were saying, "Wow, you got it quick." It usually takes people 3 to 4 times longer to go on social assistance than it took you, because I was there bugging them, looking for work, looking for, I didn't have a phone at the time. So yeah, I was able to finally get social assistance, but in order for me to get my first check for social assistance, I needed an apartment. So I went apartment shop looking for an apartment, and then I found a place, and then I was so lucky and so happy that there was a really nice gentleman that I forget his name, but he was a friend with another person named Jacques that actually sort of became a bit of a mentor, but that is another story for another time. But I was able to borrow the money, because I was trustworthy. And yeah, I was able to borrow the money. I paid it back as soon as I got that welfare check. I went right away to pay back because I always pay back my debts. I went to pay it back, and everything was like I finally had a place to stay. That was a relief. I still had the goof following me around everywhere, and that was still a problem. But at least I had an apartment up on Saint Andre, between like on the corner of Saint Andre and Ontario Street in Montreal, and 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 now I'm on welfare. And then, not too long after I got my place on Saint Andre, that I met my girlfriend. And I know I had seen her maybe a week before walking down St. Catherine Street, where she was just eyeballing me, going like yeah. I'm going to switch gears and talk about how I met my first girlfriend up in Montreal. We actually kind of been together off and on for about 5 years. And that's a strange and complicated story that I will try to get into, but I can't really say all the details of that because it's just weird. But yeah, when I maybe a week later after first seeing this girl, like on like not like I because I wanted to go and talk to her because she was just staring at me and looking at me, but of course the goof was hanging around, and he didn't want me to go to go and talk to her. You think, oh, she's not this, she's this type of person, she's that type of person, and I didn't believe her. But he was like, yeah, he was a very controlling type of person, and so whatever he said, I better do because I didn't know what the consequences would be if I said no to him. Like, because I'm at the time I was kind of in a new place, culture shock, seeing tall buildings for the first time and everything in my life, and yeah, I was pretty easy to kind of take advantage of. But I'm smart, and I really try to get what I can to do what I need to do. But it was like a week later, and I was at the Place des Arts, the art place up still on St. Catherine, right across from Complexe des Jardins. The garden complex is called, and here she was sitting on the steps right in front of Place des Arts. Right behind her was this cool little like a fountain thing with shooting water and everything. It was actually beautiful. And of course, when I walked by, she was just staring at me with a big smile on her face. She liked what she saw, and of course, I told the goof, I go, you go off. I want to talk to this girl. You're not stopping me this time from talking to her. So I sat down and I said, and I introduced myself, and I said, hey, you want to see some of my drawings? And we started talking, and I asked her to come to my place for coffee. She didn't drink coffee, but we started, when we got to my place, we started messing around. I really dig this chick, and we started messing around a bit. And didn't the goof come into the apartment and walk into the room while we're in bed together and, slap me in the side of the face and say, what are you doing already in bed with her? You just met her. She was really nice, and I didn't have any, no red alarm, no alarms going off about her, and she always was a nice person. My feelings about her was right on the money. I had she was a really cool girl, and we got along good. He had no right to go in and tell me what I can and cannot do. He was totally out of line. And I told him so. I said, you get out right now. I like this girl, and I want a relationship. I haven't had a girlfriend in a while, and I really need this in my life. This is something for. Then she leaves, okay, and I didn't. She knew where I lived, and I hadn't seen her for like 3 or 4 days, and I was wondering if she would come back to see me again. Sure enough, she did. But she said, well, her dad wants to meet me. Okay, cool. She got on the phone with him. We talked for a bit on the phone, and at the time, the goof wasn't around. But we talked on the phone and said, yeah, we made the time. The next time that she would come down and see me, we would go up to her place up in Villenjou, on a street called Saint Donat, and I would meet her. I would meet her dad, and so yeah, it. And they had a nice big place and everything. When I went up to go meet him, and so when I went up, I went alone. I went by myself to go and they gave me the address, and I was able to find it easy. And I went up to meet them, and I was in there talking to them, and nice people, like really cool people, and that, and they liked me right away. They thought I was. It was weird, but they thought I was a good fit for their daughter. And didn't they look outside and see the goof hanging out by the street? He had followed me all the way there, unbeknownst to me, and they pointed out, "Do you know that guy?" And I'm like, "Yes, but no, I don't want him around." Didn't they make the stupid mistake of inviting him in, and they got to know him and this and that, and there's more stories about that, but I'm not going to go into it yet. I want to save that for the next time. But yeah, it happened that I will be telling these stories because they're just unbelievable. So so but what the point I'm trying to get is, now they invited me to stay with them instead of being at that other place, because and after a couple of weeks, okay, the goof wanted me to get kicked out. He wanted me to leave there. He actually tried to create a fire using toilet paper in the bathroom downstairs, trying to create a fire to burn the place down so that I would have to move out of there. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that insane that he would do that kind of thing? But anyway, I ended up moving out of Saint Andre, and I started staying. But so was he, kind of. So he was there too. Like come on! I want to spend time with her without all this interference. And if it was just me and her left alone, just to build on our relationship, it would have worked out longer than that. It would have been an awesome relationship. But here he was there manipulating things behind the scenes, behind my back, and of course, like in front of me too, like doing everything he could to try to break it up and everything. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get to is, now that I was there, I had a phone number that I could leave employers and find a job. And after only being a month on social assistance, I had I got a good job working at a place called um, Vito's Metal. Yeah, yeah, where I was working with these big metal press machines, and that did all, like, it was a shop that did all kinds of things. I was first on a big machine that had a giant metal coil thing behind me, and I would take this coil thing and push it into it was a very unsafe job. I ended up having to quit that after a couple of months because it was wrecking my nerves, because I'm an artist, I need my hands, and their safety protocol was just shoddy. Whenever the inspector would come, they would put up these guards and all this safety measures that would slow down production, of course. And as soon as the safety guard would leave, they would take all these guards down, and then go faster. So I would take the metal pieces, put them in the machine, and but now I had a job. I had a decent place to live. I was staying with my girlfriend in the same room and everything. It was pretty interesting times. But yeah, that was how I came from from moving up to Montreal, being kind of on the streets in a way, like staying at Melcha. I never actually slept and stayed on the streets. I didn't consider myself to be a bum. But, I was slumming it in the beginning, trying to find my way. And here I had all these obstacles to overcome right away in the first 3-4 months. I met her. Yeah, I met her about almost a good 2.5 months of being in Montreal, and it was one of the best things that happened to me in Montreal was meeting her. I just wish the goof wasn't there to ruin it all, and his story is going to continue, and my story with her will continue. I'm gonna give you a story because eventually. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit and kind of fast forward to a little bit more later on in the year or two, because I had to quit that job eventually because it was my nerves were shot. But I went to a job fair at Complexe des Jardins, and I talked to this telemarketing place, and if you know what I'm talking about, they were not a good company to work for. It was called MemberWorks Canada, and what they were doing was crooked. If you have ever gotten a call from MemberWorks Canada, you'll know what kind of scam type of place I was dealing with. It was a call center. I passed the application and everything. They put me on some calls and that, and then I was working good 8-hour shifts, 8 to 9 hour shifts, sitting there and bugging people to. I'll get into the story of that eventually, but what I want to get to is how when I was working there, they had a contest, it was a draw. And if you were able to retain what they called members of MemberWorks, if you were able, because people were calling to cancel, so what is this charge what is this charge I'm getting for MemberWorks? And my job was, and I had to read a script verbatim to try to retain these people. And yeah, so I got sweared at. People were crying, "You're taking food out of my children's mouth" and stuff. And it was a hard job. It was probably the worst job I ever had. But you need to pay the bills and you have to work and stuff. And it was decent money at the time. It was the most money I was ever making at any type of job. But when you were able to retain a certain amount of people, there was this contest, a little draw thing, and I only had one ticket. Other people had like 5, 6, 7 tickets and stuff, and I only had one ticket. I put it in my wallet and I forgot about it. I just didn't think about it. The prize was a $2,000 top of the line computer. It was the best computer because the person who bought it was a computer expert and they knew what they were getting, and the guy actually said, yeah, this computer could actually launch the space shuttle. I don't know how true that was, but it was impressive when he told me that. I didn't think I was going to win that. It was after the weekend. I come home. I go to work, and they had the winning number on the board. Nobody had claimed it yet, and I didn't even look at the ticket. But as I'm looking at the number, I'm like, why does that number seem so familiar? Why is that like? Nah. No, and I didn't even look at the ticket yet, but somehow I knew. I knew. Like, it was unbelievable. I couldn't, like, I'm looking up at the board and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, is that my number? I slowly take my wallet out. I take out the ticket and I'm looking at the ticket. I'm looking at the number. Holy crap! I just won a brand. I won the computer. I couldn't believe it. And at the time I had moved out of my girlfriend's parents' place, and I had a place up in a place called Côte Saint Luc, like a little bit more in the English side on the west side of the city. I was living in the basement of this place where the lady upstairs had, well, she had a son that had Down syndrome and that, and it was really hard to deal with and everything, and I had to eventually move away from there. But I had now a computer, an awesome computer. I had it all set up and everything. I even went out and bought a 3-in-1 printer scanner type of thing so I could make artwork and everything. I was really starting to learn how to use it. I wasn't on the internet at the time, but I was writing my stories. I had so much work built up in there and everything. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Now the story I really want to get with this, I mean, it was fantastic that I won a computer in the first place. But after owning that computer for only 3 months, didn't the goof find where I lived? Like he had saw me and followed me and went and then came knocking on my door one day and said, "Hey, surprise! I found you." Oh, okay. So so that so after maybe a couple of weeks of him coming around bothering me, and now he knows where I live, and he started causing trouble and and made the place unlivable. Started making trouble between me and my landlord who lived above me and everything. I was quiet. I had even a couple of cats that I eventually had to bring to the SPCA, which is heartbreaking, heartbreaking. I really regret it. You know, I hated that. I called them Bruce and yeah, David and Bruce after the Incredible Hulk. I even have some pictures of them. That I'll show you someday. I just don't have it handy right now to show you. But anyway, so so come so I okay. The goof was in the hospital because he had gangrene in his foot somehow. He injured his foot and he had gangrene in it, and he was in the hospital getting it fixed and everything. And I had just come off of work, and instead of going home right away, I went to go see him. And then as I'm talking to him, he says, "Oh, by the way, when you go home, your computer's not going to be there." I'm like, "Oh, what did you do?" And he goes, "Well, you know, I sold it for $400 to get crack cocaine because he was a big crack addict. He loved his crack." And I was like, "Oh, like," and now at this time, okay, I had discovered the album Lateralis from Tool, my favorite album of all time, and the first song is called "The Grudge," which is about releasing. It's about forgiveness and releasing yourself from holding grudges. So I mean, as sad and as mad as I was at learning that all that work and all that progress I made on that computer, and the fact that my computer was now stolen, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. But you know what I said to him? And I don't know why I said that to him, and I know it kind of messed him up. I said to him, "You are forgiven," because I was also at the time kind of reading a book called A Course in Miracles, and again it was talking about forgiving and why it's necessary to be forgiving. I didn't say I forgave him. No, I said you are forgiven. And I don't know what it like it he did become a little bit better after, just a little bit better after that. Wasn't as, well, he's still a con artist in that, and I'll tell more stories of our exploits because they're really unbelievable. But yeah, I had to tell this story in particular about him because it was it was it illustrates what type of person I am. That I don't hold grudges. That I try to see the, even at the worst of time, I try to make the best of the situation. I had to let it go because if I would have been hateful and hated him for doing that, it would have eaten me up inside. It would have been I would have been harbored. I mean, I still, it still saddens me to this day that that happened, and that all this, the turmoil he put me through. Like, he was stuck. He was in my life for almost a good 5 years. Every, like, I would get these breaks where he wouldn't be around for a couple of months and everything, but he always found a way to find me and torment me, stalking me, like trying to ingratiate his friendship on me. And I would hang around with him here and there. He would drag me out on his adventures to be lookout, to be his six. But I didn't want to do that. I tried to always try to be far away from his crimes. I'd be like 2 blocks away while he's doing his crimes, and that. And like when he would go and smash windows in cars and take their chains out of the glove compartment and stuff, or in the partition between the seats and stuff. Like, he had this cab driver that he liked to target. He would break into parking lot booths, and I tried not to be around. I tried not to be near him when he did this, but yeah, he was a forceful type of person, and I was weak-willed at the time. You know, still trying to make my way through Montreal and everything. But those are a few of those stories that happened at the time within the first year or so, or 2 years of moving up to Montreal. And yeah, I wish I would have never have spoken to the goof in the first place. It was just nasty. It was just terrible times. I love being in Montreal. I love the people, the other people I met. I love that I had met a girlfriend and we stayed together. I thought she was good looking. She was a nice girl. She would get cranky when she would get hungry, but I always knew it when she started getting cranky. All I had to do was just feed her, make sure she ate, and then she would be back to normal again. Lovely girl, lovely girl. Kind of talked a bit baby talk, but and she was all French, all French. Like, I was learning my French, and we had sometimes some communication problems and everything, but I really liked her. I can't really say that I fully loved her, but I did love her in my own way. I tried to make it work as much as I could, but it was just too much hassle with her family, because sometimes you're not just going out with the girl, you have to go out with her family too and everything. And there was jealousy. They didn't understand why we were still together. They thought we were only going to be together for maybe a week or so. They didn't think that we were going to be together for a long while. I even lived with her, just me and her, for a while, without the goof being around. But yeah, those are some of the things that happened to me in Montreal in the first year. There's many, many, many more stories that I will be telling in the future. I want to make one of these Moestories, my Montreal adventures, like every week if I can, because there is like I say at least 100 different stories I can tell about Montreal. So before I leave you guys, I want to tell you one other quick story of something that happened in Montreal with me and the goof. We were hanging around around Centreville, more by the harbor and that. We were going through these back alley places and that, and didn't like I was with the goof, okay, and didn't this guy about he was like maybe 10 feet away, 10 feet or so, didn't he pull a knife on us? Like I don't know what his problem was, what he thought he was gonna get from us, but he pulled a knife, and I was a little bit more hardened at the time, and I know that the goof was not gonna back down from a challenge like that. He's scary. Well, why this guy pulled? He didn't even make any real demands. He just pulled a knife on us, and he was going about to say something. And I look at the goof, and the goof looked at me and said, "Let's get him." And we start lunging towards him. The guy, his eyes go wide. He drops the knife. And I start running after him. I was fast. And the goof goes and he picks up the knife and he starts trailing, but he smokes and he's on crack and he's slow. But I chase after this guy. But I'm fast, but this guy kept in front of me. I did not catch the guy, but I chased him for at least 3 to 4 blocks. Getting out of breath, and I tried to keep the stamina going, and I tried to catch this guy, and no way did I catch him. Like a couple of times where I'm like, he stops catching his breath, and I stop catching my breath around the same time, and we're staring each other down, and I go and I lunge and I start chasing after him, and he starts running. But yeah, I still couldn't believe it to this day that we were not scared of him, because after dealing with this guy, the goof, for as long as I did, I kind of gotten a little bit hardened and wasn't afraid of a little scrawny punk that pulls a knife on us, a little blade that he just flipped open and started chasing us. Oh yeah. So things like that happen in Montreal, my adventures. I don't know if you believe any of those stories, but I swear to you they're true. I've had such weird times in Montreal, and I want to share as many of those stories as possible, because I hope this is more entertaining for you. I've been wanting to say these stories for a while, but I don't want to be rambling too much because there's so much that happened. I don't want to script these because I want you to get the raw, straight story of everything that's happened to me in Montreal as they come to my mind. I don't want this to be not censored is not the word I'm looking for, but I don't want this to be scripted. I want you to get the straight things as they appear to my mind, as I remember them, because yeah, the adventures in Montreal are it's some of the most wildest time, and at the time I would say I didn't want to be in those, but at the same time, if those events didn't happen, they wouldn't have made me into the person I am today. I'm weirdly thankful for those types of adventures because they really shaped me into who I want to be. They made me a better person and wanting to be kind to people, wanting to give people chances, even when I shouldn't be. And it was at the weakest moment and some of the strongest moments of my life that I survived Montreal. And I can't wait to bring more of these adventures to you in future episodes. But I don't want to make this over an hour long, so I'm going to actually, while it's just about to hit the 50-minute mark, I'm going to let you go here. And as always, please be safe. Take care. I will see you on the flip side, and have a great day, evening, night, wherever you may be. To be continued. Peace, everyone.